Obrigado, presidente Ramaphosa. Obrigado, companheiros presidentes dos países que compõem os BRICS. Eu gostaria de cumprimentar o presidente Ramaphosa por dedicar este debate à parceria dos BRICS com o Sul Global, em especial com a África. É hora de revitalizar a cooperação entre os países em desenvolvimento. Vemos hoje o surgimento de novos desafios
to the long-term problems. We have been hit by a pandemic, by new conflicts, and by a urgent climate emergency in the moment when we were working for the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. When the Agenda 2030 was adopted, it outlined a path for a better future. Today, half of the targets are delayed, and we have seen setbacks or stagnation in pretty much a third of them. Food insecurity went back to 2005 levels. Democracy, in many places, is under threat by extremism or has corroded by xenophobia. Once more, we are under the risk of a nuclear war.
The world has gone backwards. Many of the answers that we seek for us to build a world that will be more equitable are located in Africa. COVID-19 has eliminated thousands of lives, although the unjustifiable hurdles to access to vaccines to Africa, they've presented a very low mortality rate nevertheless. While concerns on security limited more and more the sharing of technologies, the African Union launches a digital transformation strategy, and hundreds of startups and innovation centers come up in Africa. At the same time, where proliferates unilateral measures that threaten the integrity of the trade regime, the African continent has become in the largest free trade area of the planet, with 1.3 billion people and a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion. As multilateral bodies fail to respond to the threats to peace, the African Union takes growing protagonism in the conflict resolution. On one hand, excludent alliances are reborn and accelerate tensions, and on the other hand, African countries are getting together to preserve the peace zone and cooperation between the South Atlantic. But as in also in other regions, Africa, it's quite evident the great constraints and refrain that are imposed on the developing countries. The globalization promises were not fulfilled. Many nations see today that are limited by unpayable foreign debt. In the last years, the volume of resources directed to the global south through trade and investments have been diminishing. The greatest part of the world, in the developing world, depends on the export of commodities, where the demand is volatile and the goods importments of first needs are very difficult because the prices went up. At the same time, financial institutions impose high interest rates and conditionalities that narrow the action space of the state. It is impossible to promote sustainable development if the national budget or the public budget is consumed by the foreign debt service. To fight the climate change offers us an opportunity to rethink financing models, trade, and development. The energy transition cannot bring back again the exploitation relationship of the colonial past. We need solutions that diversify and add value to the production of the developing countries. The most evident signal that the planet is becoming a place with more inequality is the growth of hunger and poverty. And this is unacceptable. Although its magnitude, these problems are not treated with the urgency that they deserve. The emissions of the 1% richest part of the world population are 100 times higher than the 50% poorest. As the Kenyan environmentalist Wangari Maathai, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, we quote, "We would like to put the blame on the poor for the destruction of the environment, but frequently the powerful ones, including the governments, are the true responsible," end of quote. We have sustainable forms to enhance the agricultural output, create income, and offer social protection. And this was what we discussed in the Amazon Summit meeting in the city of Belém in Brazil, in the Amazon region. And this is what we want to discuss with the other countries that have tropical basins like Congo and the Borno-Mekong. Brazil will take over the chair of the G20 in December, and we want to put back the inequality reduction as the core of the international agenda to reduce inequalities. We cannot do that without greater representation from Africa. So that's why we advocate the entrance of the African Union as member of the G20. Now, with my trip to South Africa, and then I will follow to Angola and to São Tomé and Príncipe, I intend to open a new cooperation agenda between Brazil and Africa. Let's go back to our universal vocation and rebuild our historical ties with the developing countries. Prosperity is only full when it is shared. The presence here of dozens of leaders from the global south shows that the world is much more complex than the mindset that came from the World War, the Cold War, that some wants to reinstall. And instead of following the rationale of competition that imposes automatic alignments and that will foster mistrust, we have to strengthen our collaboration within the global south. The world with welfare and well-being for all is only possible if we have an international order that will be more inclusive and more solidarity. Thank you very much.